It has been instrumental in soothing the minds of billions. Its tremendous sound, sung and heard by noble kings, revolutionary leaders, and political individuals. Its rhythmic flow and various pitches have constantly engaged the attention of many, as well as increased a desire for learning its functionality and structure. Music truly is an element that has been recognized by people of every culture and generation. And with the rise of such an art comes the ascension of legends, whose songs have melted the hearts of billions and broke down barriers that prevented them from pursuing their dreams. These people have been given many names: the King of Rock and Roll, the Queen of Soul, the King of Pop, and the Voice, each given as a result of their own musical style, taste, and flavor. But out of all of these gifted individuals, none has been given the honor of being named the Golden Voice. Every legend has a beginning, a story that predates their arrival and journey in the larger world. And for Rosella Dario, this was especially the case. Rosella Dario was born on June 11, 1925 in Joliet, Illinois. Her parents, Evangelist Didisa Dario and Lorenzina Paluzzi, both immigrated to America from Italy in search for a better life, and later met each other in Joliet.
Her brother had a grocery store on Collins Street, and he happened to come into the grocery store, and Mom was there, and I guess she was helping customers and that. And naturally, of course, I guess they knew, they saw for the first time that, there was something there. Chemistry was working. So Mom and Dad, from that time on, I guess they started seeing one another and realized, this was it.
After getting married, Evangelist and Lorenzina began to start a family. They had a total of 6 children: Samuel, Mary, Joseph, Francis, and Emma, with Rosella being the 5th child in the family. While Rosella's father worked at the EJ&E Railroad as a blacksmith, her mother stayed at the house with the rest of their children.
Mom was very loving. Mom was always there. We never had to go look for her, be without her. She was mothering us always and showed a lot of love. We didn't have wealth and a lot of the things that people enjoy, but we were family at all times, close, and showed love to one another. We had good nourishing food. Nothing processed, nothing quick. It was all old-fashioned cooking.
At the age of 7, Rosella sang with Sammy Burke's orchestra in front of a live audience at an outdoor pavilion in the Dalewood Park District in Lockport, Illinois.
It was raining that night. They had me standing on a chair. And that should not have been, because I was a little on the chubby side. And I was on that chair and it was kind of squeaking. And when I sing, I move. And it was squeaking all the time I sang. And I sang, "Why don't we get along?"
As a child, Rosella never got the chance to see the outside world and all its wonder and beauty. This was due to the fact that Rosella's mother was overprotective of her, mainly because of her experience back in Italy. The only place that Rosella could go was the movie theater, where she would watch movies all day long.
I didn't have the freedom to go out and express myself or get the feel of life and being out there and, kind of being streetwise a bit, knowing what was going on. I was kept from all of that. Mom kept a real close eye on all of us, but me especially, because I guess she realized that I really wanted a career. I was going that way, that music was to be my life.
Although Rosella immersed herself in the movie theater to escape her mother's tight grasp, she was unprepared for a major event that would not only change her life, but also the lives of every person around the world. The Great Depression began in the United States on September 4, 1929, but hit the rest of the Eastern world on October 29, 1929. For America, this was especially a terrible time because every person had been largely affected by this worldwide economic drop. Rosella, who was 4 years old by this time, was already starting to notice the results of the Depression on her family, and she could not understand, much less believe, why this was happening.
We had to skimp and scrape, and naturally with 6 children, and my dad working as a blacksmith, there wasn't a terribly big amount of money for income. So mom did a lot of cooking and a lot of baking, and she just was a mama all the time. She was always in that kitchen. So we ate well, considering that we didn't have the means then. And of course I remember how we for butter we had to have this, it was kind of like lard, and you put this little pack of orange substance in it to make it look like butter. and it wasn't too good tasting, but it did the trick. It helped.
After the Depression ended, Rosella was able to attend school. Like any other parent, Rosella's mother knew receiving an education was good for her child, especially if it was from a good school. As a result of being actively engaged in both grade and middle school, Rosella was able to pass with flying colors in every class she had. The last school that Rosella enrolled in was Joliet Central Township High School, where she took a 4-year secretarial course. After graduation, Rosella became the secretary for her high school. Every time she did clerical work, Rosella would begin to sing songs that required emotion and vigor, which not only revealed her true passion, but also her lifelong dream. Although life seemed to be relatively normal for Rosella and her family, it did not last forever, because she was about to experience a disturbing event that would not only affect her life, but also every person around the world as well. On September 1st, 1939, World War II broke out on a global scale when Poland was invaded by Germany. Once receiving the news, the United Kingdom and France declared war on Germany and joined forces with countries such as the United States, Soviet Union, China, and many others in order to take down Germany. During this time, Rosella's 2 brothers, Samuel and Joseph, had enlisted in the armed services, and for her, it was difficult to watch her brothers leave in order to defend their country.
My 2 brothers went in, and my mother wore black. She put on a black dress and never took it off. All those years that they were gone, and it was sad. My mother was not herself. It just changed everything. I don't like to keep memories of that. It wasn't a good time for us.
While her brothers were fighting in the war, Rosella, as well as her mother and sisters, stayed at the house awaiting their return. But the thought that haunted her mind the most was that her brothers could die at any time, which only aided her fear and anxiety even more.
You love your brothers and sisters, and all of a sudden they're taken from you. So we miss my 2 brothers, and of course we worried about if ever they would come back, just like Mom, but we didn't try not to show it because Mom was suffering so about it. So we just didn't. We tried to act like, normal times, and nothing, it was all still the same, and everything's going to be all right.
After the war, the men returned home, and Rosella was happy to see her 2 brothers again. With her family back together, Rosella continued to use her melodious voice so that it can be a blessing toward others. One day, Rosella received an opportunity to sing at the Woodruff Hotel in downtown Joliet, and it is when she was singing with absolute passion that she noticed someone admiring her from a distance.
I was singing at the Woodruff Hotel, and all of a sudden this group of men come in, and naturally, of course, Bob was one of them, and when he saw me, he quick got rid of those boys. He went out of the building, and he got rid of them and came back alone. And he stayed until I was through singing. And it so happened I had to be chaperoned. My mother would never let me go anywhere without being chaperoned. So I had a lady friend who knew him. She was a neighbor of his, and she knew him well. And so when he saw her, he thought, oh, he had an in.
After the concert, Robert came over and told Rosella he enjoyed her singing. And from that time on, they have been fond of each other ever since. However, when her mother learned that Rosella was in a relationship, she was not only very displeased, but also tried to discourage Rosella from dating Robert. But over time, Rosella's mother began to like Robert, and she allowed him to date her daughter and even become her husband. After getting married, Rosella and Robert had 3 children together, Robert Jr., Lynette, and Randy. It is at this point that Rosella decided to pursue her aspiration as a professional singer. Her first opportunity to sing was at Pioneer Gardens in Joliet, where she sang with Gene Victor's orchestra. And since that debut, Rosella has made different appearances all around the city of Joliet, including the Rialto Theater.
Well, the Rialto, which was my goal, my dream, I loved it. I always thought, oh, if I could only get into the Rialto, and I did. I finally had the opportunity to do that. I sang at Little Jack's, I sang at Pioneer Gardens, I sang at a lot of ballrooms out of town for proms and things like that. And then I was in 12 Kiwanian Broadway musicals that were staged at the high school and at the Rialto. And then in between, I sang with all the different groups in Joliet, Jules Ryan, Bill Carnegie, Roy Garden, Gene Victor. But I managed to sing with most of the musical groups in Joliet.
Rosella not only took different opportunities to sing in the Joliet area, but also in various states, such as Wisconsin, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, and Nebraska, exuberantly revealing her passion as she traveled.
That's hard to express or describe. All I can say is it's a form of ecstasy for me. I had such a passion for singing. It was such a deep love all my life. That was it. I had no thought of meeting, getting married, having that White House with a fence around. I never had those thoughts, ever. My sisters, yes, but I was the black sheep. I wanted a career. I wanted that more than ever. I wanted to be able to sing my life through, because I could express myself best that way.
Rosella's voice was so remarkable among listeners that even the mafia came and proposed in managing her career, but her mother was against that idea, and Rosella refused the offer.
I was in my kitchen one day, and my children were small, and they came to my house, and I don't know how and why, and the reason that they would come. They wanted me to join them, to be their woman. They wanted to promote me. They said any amount of money, thousands of dollars, 20, 40, 50, any amount of, and we'll push you and put you where you belong. And I thought, wow, this is something I never ever dreamed would be presented to me. And of course, it sounded good, but I was so fearful, I didn't expect them, and I didn't know about this, and it was such a shock, a surprise. I told them, well, thank you for coming, but I'll have to think about this. And so that ended very quickly there. And of course, it never came to fruition because I declined.
Sometime later, an influential vocal coach heard Rosella's voice and gave her the opportunity to travel around the world with him. The terms of the negotiation included all paid expenses for both housing and transportation, but once again, Rosella declined the proposal because of her mother.
They saw me this one time. He told me, he said, you have a very lovely voice, and he says, there's a lot of potential there. He said, I'd like you to be my protege. He said, would you come and live in our home? Oh, I thought that was a great thing, and I was ready to go. But Mom, she said, no, that that would not be good. He's a married man. You're not to go. And that was the end of that.
With a loyal husband, growing career, and 3 children, Rosella felt confident that her life would keep on getting better and that her performance streak would never end. Unfortunately for her, the good times would not last forever. Even though life was starting to get better for Rosella, she was unaware of the traumatic events that would not only befall her, but also the rest of the country as well. When President John F. Kennedy was assassinated on November 22, 1963, millions of Americans lamented his death, but the Kennedy family mourned even more. Some years later, civil rights activist Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on April 4, 1968, and many Americans were also disheartened at this sad outcome. For Rosella, hearing the death of these 2 great leaders was truly heartbreaking. Although the death of these 2 authority figures affected Rosella, it was a small matter compared to the upheaval that was coming down the road. While at her house one day, Rosella walked into another room where she found her husband slouched over the couch. She tried to arouse him, but to no avail. By the time the paramedics arrived, her husband had suffered from a heart attack and died.
We went to visit my mother. We'd just gotten into the house, and my sister Emma had offered him some 7-Up, and he just sat down with this glass of 7-Up. He took 1 sip, and all of a sudden, he was gone. He just slumped over, and he had a massive heart attack, and so I was gone.
Even though her husband was gone, that did not stop Rosella from pursuing her dream. During this time, her Christian walk, music, and children seemed to be the only comforts that could carry her through that traumatizing experience.
Tell me, how did you meet Jesus Christ?
I met Jesus Christ. I don't know that you know that I was recently a widow of 2.5 years, and I believe that's when it really struck me that I was truly lost and didn't know where to turn, and I truly hungered for something. I was terribly restless, and it was on this particular night, it was a Friday evening, June the 20th of last year, that I went to Dalton, Illinois, and I met a wonderful evangelist there that I soon took Jesus Christ into my heart. That very evening I accepted him.
I met Rosella about 10 years ago. She has been a member here for about 27 years and a faithful attendee the entire time. She would come alone or she'd bring a friend, and I've gotten to know her over the years that way. Well, what I appreciate about Rosella is occasionally we have no special music, and impromptu. I've looked out into the congregation and asked her if she would come and sing for us, and without hesitation, every time she has come up and sang. So that has been a real blessing to help with the worship, and so she's always been a willing servant in that way.
Well, I believe it's shortly after we came to Joliet. She came to some evangelistic meetings we had, and we got acquainted then. We've enjoyed her very, very much. Well, I appreciate that you can understand all her words, and she sings with very great feeling. And she's come over to the house a few times, and I've played for her. Not as many times as I wish, but I do believe that the Lord has blessed her voice and that she's willing here at the age of 89 to use it for the Lord. And that's a wonderful thing.
Another thing we've learned about her voice is that she always memorizes her songs, so she doesn't have music in front of her.
Randall Hazy is my real name, but I do go by Randy. But I was born in November of '54. You know, I knew she had a great voice. You know, and she really had the total package. You know, and it's a shame that the world kind of missed out on this talent, because she had so much to share, and it's just you know, it didn't come to pass. But the Lord, I think, protected her to some degree, because it's not a pleasant business, and you know, so she had 3 wonderful children, and she raised them great, and I'm sure happy she's my mom.
Years later, Rosella's mother soon became ill, and Rosella had to stop performing in order to take care of her. Rosella aided her mother on an everyday basis, assisting her in any way she could until she passed away.
Well, I knew that I would never do anything to sadden my mother or to hurt her in any way. I really loved her deeply, and I never wanted to do anything that she didn't approve, and that's the way I went.
After her mother's departure, Rosella still followed her passion of singing, but with fewer engagements presenting themselves, she was left to focus more on her family as well as her faith.
Welcome to Seniors, the Young at Heart. Our second half of the show is with Miss Rosella Haas. She is a professional singer, and she was the Miss Senior pageant winner of 1983 into 1984. Welcome, Rosella Haas.
Well, thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Well, thank you. How did you decide to become a pageant contestant? That really is something.
Well, of course, being an employee at the Senior Services Center, I heard about the applications, so it was very, it didn't take too long that where I filled one out, and before I knew it, I was one of the contestants.
I was working at Caterpillar at the time, and I guess the start age, 55 and over, was called a senior citizen. She was 58. But they had, I guess, an evening gown, and then a talent. She sang, of course, and then she sang beautifully, "Why Did You Leave Me?" That really was huge. But then when they asked her the question, and I forget exactly what it was, something about if you could describe yourself in 3 words or 2 words, what would it be? And she answered, and it just rolled off her tongue, and it was perfect. I said, "There's your winner."
I'll never forget my brother when he saw me after the pageant. We were on stage, and everyone was coming up and congratulating. He said, "Rose, where did you ever find that song?" And he had tears coming down his cheek. He said it was so beautiful. He said, "You're going to have to sing it for me again."
Unfortunately, there was yet another tragedy that would soon take place in Rosella's life. While her son Robert Jr. was riding a motorcycle one day, he was hit by a car driven by a man who was intoxicated, along with 3 other males with him. When Rosella heard that her son was injured, she rushed immediately to the hospital to see him. Even though his body was still perfectly intact, the same could not be said about his pancreas, which was out of commission, and soon after, his body not only started shutting down, but also developed diabetes until he died.
He hurt his pancreas. He injured his pancreas so bad that it finally made it a sort of an invalid of him. His health was never the same after that. He just slowly deteriorated, and of course, the Lord took him.
This tragic incident only added more pain for Rosella, because now she would have to live with the sad reality of not seeing her husband, mother, or son again. The only person that Rosella could draw close to at this time was her best friend, Dorothy. As time passed on, Rosella received fewer opportunities to sing in different places, which made it more difficult to live out the lifelong dream she so desired. But even with her prominence slowly fading away, Rosella did not dismiss her aspiration of becoming a professional singer. Unfortunately, there was yet one last calamity to transpire in Rosella's life that for her would be the pinnacle of sorrow. On November 19, 2012, Rosella received an urgent call from Dorothy's daughter, who told her that her mother's house was on fire. Without any delay, Rosella immediately rushed over to Dorothy's house to see if everything was all right. Upon arriving, Rosella found Dorothy lying on the ground next to an off-duty fireman who saved her from being burnt up. However, Dorothy was not breathing, and on top of that, she had multiple puncture wounds on the right side of her body, which soon gave Rosella the troubling revelation that her best friend was already dead. Once the authorities arrived, they started to investigate the scene, looking for clues that could help them understand who had caused this traumatic incident to take place and why. Looking at Rosella, the authorities claimed her as a suspect and took her in for interrogation. It was not until much later that the authorities found the person who murdered Rosella's best friend, Dorothy's next-door neighbor.
My mother was Rosella's best friend for, probably over 50 years. They knew each other in high school, and then their lives got a little separated for a while, and they each had their families. And then they reconnected, I think, when I was about 15 years old. And from that point on, they were inseparable. They were just like two sisters, two peas in a pod. And they did everything together, from bowling to going to each other's families' homes. And Rosella attended many parties at our family's house with children, our children, grandchildren, as well as my mother attending her mother, get-togethers and family functions and anniversaries and so forth and so on. And towards the end, before my mother passed away, Rosella was her daily companion, and I always felt safe. I wanted my mother to move, but she wouldn't move from her home, and Rosella was always there to take care of her and to be there for her daily, and they were just inseparable. And it's just, now my mom's gone and things have changed in life, but Rosella is still going, and she's doing very, very well, and I wish I had half of her energy.
She was truly a friend, if ever there was one. I couldn't have asked for anyone better than her. She was the most, and I miss her terribly. I could almost cry every time I think about her.
With her best friend now dead, there was no one else to comfort Rosella during her time of grieving, and once again, she had to endure the pain and suffering that came with the loss of a loved one. The overall journey that Rosella embarked on was both an unforgettable and tremendous experience that was well beyond her imagination and comprehension. Although there were trials and tribulations that transpired in her life, Rosella, despite all odds against her, continued to move forward and strive, never giving up on the one dream that she has always desired would come true, becoming a professional singer.
Imagine I'm going to be 90 years old, and I say, Lord, is that too old to still want to sing and be a little someone? And of course, I don't know. I do like the song, Let Me Try Again. I have those thoughts.
But Rosella's story does not end here. Rather, it is only a continuation of possibilities that are greater than anyone can ever imagine. Rosella still has her two children, Lynette and Randy, who visit her from time to time, and is still committed in her Christian faith, which has also been a big help in guiding her through all the challenges that life has to offer.
She doesn't let her age slow her down. She's always willing to serve as she's able. And she always looks to today as a day to be seized and to do the most in, and has a positive attitude, and doesn't show any signs of slowing down. And, you know, and also just being willing to be God's instrument wherever she goes.
Rosella has been a true friend, and she has written several times to me lovely letters, cards, and ones that you think, I'm not going to throw this away. And I appreciate her always being there. She's willing to do whatever for you. She's willing to help others, no matter if it inconveniences herself. And I can remember us going to Christian Women's Club together, and that was a privilege. And she's also, of course, sung for them. And we have a lot of nice memories.
She is a wonderful person, and I'm glad she's still alive, because she does do a lot of good things, including our most recent visit with her. We stopped by her house, and she was on the porch, and she came onto the car and visited us there, and it was a pleasure.
I just like to have these golden years for the Golden Voice, just to be pleasant, that she feels that her life hasn't been a waste, that she has done many wonderful things for many people, and that people recognize this person that was so giving, so loving, so caring, and so talented.
Rosella, you've been a special part of our lives for, well, at least as long as I've known you, which was probably over 40 years. And you are a very special person. You're an inspiration. You're a person that at my age I would look up to and want to be like you when I reach your age. And I hope I have just half of the energy that you have. And I thank you for always being there for my mom towards the end of her life, the last maybe 10 years. I know things have not been as they used to be, but you were always there to support her, and I love you, Rosella, and thank you for everything that you've done.
You don't have life. You're not living unless you have the Lord. You must seek Him, love Him, obey Him, and be into His Word every day. And then you'll know what life is living like, to have the blessings and love and enjoy every minute.
For Rosella, her future continues to shine bright as she perseveres on her quest for recognition and prominence in the world of music. She even has songs that have never been released, which make it harder for other individuals to hear the wonderful voice that she has. Although this is true, Rosella hopes that one day her songs can be launched into the musical arena so that she can not only become a professional singer, but also continue to be an inspiration and blessing for people as the golden voice once again.
Top of the
us up